Welcome to my new episode. This time I'm going to talk about FTE, which is full-time equivalent. It's a productivity measure, and most of the hotels, most of the restaurants, most of the companies use it to measure the productivity, to check the performance of two business units, different locations, same locations, different size, and how we can manage the manpower or the workforce to reduce the payroll cost. I've explained FTE in my book, The Hotel Accountant. This book, if you see the part 2, is all about the FTE, the productivity measurement. This book is a part of many universities and hotel management school libraries, and very soon I'm going to have it in different language, not only in English, so that many people, many students can read it and benefit it. Today we're going to talk about FTE, and we'll try to cover up almost everything. FTE is a full-time equivalent, and it is actually the working hours. Now, what happened in a company or in a business unit, let's say in a hotel, we have a head count. Head count is the actual number of employees, so which is full-timers, part-timers and casual. So everyone who's paid for work is a part of HC or head count, and generally head count is used to measure the productivity, but actually head count is not a real productivity measurement. The FTE is a real productivity measurement, and how we calculate it we're going to discuss now. FTE is a very effective way to manage the manpower or the workforce in line with the business levels, and it is ideal for any business. It's a hotel, it can be a restaurant, it can be a small working unit, even the spa, anywhere. It's very important, because once we calculate FTE, then we start calculating the productivity and start comparing two periods, let's say January, February, March. We can start comparing two units. One is in Bangkok, one is in Phuket, one is in Maldives, how it works, maybe in Dubai, how effective our staff is, and it is also used for the budget and forecast process. So there's many ways of using it. Since head count is a combination of full-time, part-time and casuals, it changes with the business. Whenever there's a spike in the business, we see more manning, we need more casuals, and the moment the business slow down with low occupancy period, we start taking out the casuals or maybe the part-timers, or maybe giving annual leaves, full-time staff. So we start managing it, but then we need to calculate it, how it works, how this management is working towards us, how managing or changing the payroll is really impacting in terms of numbers. We have to calculate it, we have to quantify it. So FTE can actually quantify it. It can tell you how it's working. Is it really in your benefit, or it's not really working as per business volume or the business level? So since FTE is a actual working hours, we always select a period, and today for our discussion we'll be using only a 1 week as a period. It's easy to calculate and easy to explain or understand. Let's take 1 week as a measurement for today's discussion. So whatever we discuss, whatever example we're going to go through, everything based on the 1 week, which means 7 days. And also head count is the actual number of staff in any business unit at that period of time. So when we talk about it, we'll take the actual number of staff, which is full-time, part-time, casuals who are paid for the job for a period, let's say for a 1 week, and then we'll talk about the FTE, which is based on the actual working hours. So how many hours the staff work in that period, that will be the real measurement. There's always a question come up whether trainees are also part of head count or not. It depends on if they are paid. If the trainees are paid for the work, definitely they'll be part of this head count calculation. Full-time we call FT, part-time we call PT, casual we call CS. So FT, PT, CS, and then include the trainees. But if trainees are not working, actual working, now trainee actually work, but trainee are there to support the business, to learn new things, to learn how the business works. They're not there to work actually. So if you're not using trainee for real work purpose, so technically trainee should not be part of it, because they are trainees, they're there to learn, they're not there to work. Instead, casuals, yes, Like for a F&B function, we have a casuals for one day. 10 casuals come, they work for 4 hours, so 4 times 10 is 40 hours. That kind of work they have given for us. So that is a calculation, but not trainees. Full-time is a full-time, part-time is how many days they're working, and casual, how much period or hours they're working. So any business operate on a mix of part-timers and casuals. Full-time is anyway there. Now how they manage their part-time and casuals are, again, it's easy to inflate or reduce when there's many casuals in a system or many part-timers in a system. Although there's an issue with the brand, if a brand hotel, certain services cannot be based on the part-time or casuals, there has to be based on the full-time who are trained for the job. But there are a lot of jobs which can be part-time jobs, there are a lot of jobs which can be casual jobs, and based on the business volume, we start managing it. If a business unit having most of the staff under full-time, that is FTE, and very less part-time and casuals, very difficult to manage it, and then the FTE again don't work very well. So the formula is have a good mix of it based on business, based on the time, based on the period, based on the occupancy level. So there are 4 terms we use for FTE calculations. First is FTE, which is full-time equivalent. Second is standard working hours. Standard working hours for a week is 45 hours. Some places it is 48 hours. It's driven by the local laws. We take 45 hours, 5 days, Monday to Friday, 9 hours every day. So 9 times 5 is 45. So that's my standard working hours. Then I have actual working hours, how many hours actually the staff worked. And fourth is our famous HC, which is a head count. So 4 terms we use in this calculation. Easy. FTE, HC, actual working hours, and standard working hours. Now actual working hours is a total hours spent by the employees in a business unit working, whether working inside, outside, but working hours. It includes the overtime also. If a person who's supposed to work 9 hours today, but because of the business he has to work for 14 hours, so 5 hours will be added in actual working hours. But if he's taking a half day, then obviously it goes down. So it's very fluid. It keeps changing based on the business volume, decisions, employee movement. When there's a resignation, the head count goes down. Same time, the actual working hours also goes down. And a new employee comes, the working hours increase. But again, it's up to the managers and the owners of the business, how they manage, how they use these hours. Second is standard working hours. We just explained it's mostly 45 per week, which is 9 hours per day for 5 days. Some places I've seen it's 48 hours. Again, it's driven by the local laws. 47 also I've seen, but mostly it is 45. So standard working hours for a week, we generally take 45. The standard formula, no need to change. So when we have standard working hours, we have actual working hours, we have to calculate the FTE, that's full-time equivalent. What we do, we take the total working hours and divide by the standard working hours. One standard working hours of the one employee, and actual working hours of all the employees. I'll show you an example. Let's take example of an outlet which has 10 employees, so 10 head counts, and the standard working hours is 45. So the manager, what he did, he calculated the actual working hours of the employees for a week based on the shifts and who's coming, who's not coming, who's working extra. And when he calculated, he found 410 hours totally work hours spent in the outlet. So to calculate the FTE, 410, that's total working hours of the employee, divide by 45, which is standard working hours. The moment we divide it, the outcome is 9.11. So FTE is 9.11. Although the head count is 10, but FTE is 9.11, which means that much of employee actually worked in your system in that week, in your outlet in that week. We'll take another example because manager want to see how it works. Next week the business will start getting better, he has to pay overtime. And again he calculates the working hours. The total working hours for this week was 512. Again he calculates the FTE. So 512 hours divided by standard working hours, which is 45. So 512 divided by 45. Now the product is 11.38. So the point to be noted, the headcount remains same. It is 10 for last week, 10 for this week. But last week the FTE is 9.1 and this week the FTE is 11.3. So where these two people come from? There is no two people. It's the extra work. It's a 2 days employees extra work next week. So he understands, the manager, he is using more manpower for this business. And then again this FTE will be used to calculate the productivity, which I'm going to explain you later. But to reach the productivity, the FTE need to be understood. So we take the actual working hours, whatever, we can have 10 employees, we can have 20 employees, we can have 18 employees. How many hours they work? They can be part-time, they can be full-time, they can be casuals. And total accumulative hours, work hours, divided by the standard working hours, which is 45, you got the FTE. Since it belongs to FTE, which is manpower, the working hours, it impacts the payroll. If I have a lesser FTE, the payroll also shrink. When my FTE is more, my payroll increase. Now you will say how it works. Your accountant will tell you immediately, but I will tell you also a little bit. When we have 11 FTE and head count is only 10, which means few staff was doing overtime and we have to pay overtime. But when the FTE is less, that is 9.1 instead of 10 employees, which means some of the staff was on leave or working half day, so I don't pay for that. Now how this annual calculation works and all, someday we'll talk about is typical accounting thing, but definitely we'll talk about it. But the payroll manage with the FTE, and that's why FTE is very important. We as a manager to understand how my FTE is moving, not my head count is moving, and then FTE will be linked with your productivity. Look at this chart. Now I like to explain how the actual hours impact the business. It's not the head count. Head count does impact, but main impact or actual impact on the payroll is from the FTE, which is the actual working hours. In this chart I have taken 4 weeks, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and if you see the head count is 10 for week 1, second week again 10, third week again 10, but fourth week there is a less head count, that is one person resigned, so 9, so 10, 10, 10 and 9. Standard working hours is same, but the actual working hours keep changing. The first week was 410, second week was 512, third week was 382 only because business dip, and the fourth week 416. So when we calculate the FTE, it changes based on the business volume. The first week it was 9.11, second week it increased to 11.38, third week it come down to 8.47. So we have 10 employees but my FTE is 8.49, and the fourth week I have 9 employees and my FTE again increased from 8.4 to 9.2 because my working hours increased although the number of the staff reduced. So you can see the change. It linked with the business, whereas the head count is more static thing. But again, if my head count is a combination of the part-time and casuals and a full-time, it manages. So here the business manager is managing very well. He's changing his FTE from 9 to 11, 11 to come down to 8, again to 9. So it's flowing, and that's how he's also managing the payroll cost, which is one of the main costs in the business. Let's move to the second step, that is productivity analysis, where you will understand how it's impacting the business. Implementing a regular process of calculating productivity, it helps in business decision and it support in the planning, also for budgeting, also for forecasting, all that activities. But again, the base is to calculate FTE first and then productivity, and then benchmark your business. Once you benchmark, okay, at this level I'm doing it with so many FTE, or I'm generating so much of revenue, or I'm generating so much of profit with per FTE. That's how I benchmark my business. And that's how I calculate my performance, my improvement, my growth, and also plan my budgets and plan my forecasting. Again, when we do productivity analysis, we can compare two different locations and two different periods. Location is very important. If you want to compare your business unit with some other location, let's say two different countries, let's say Dubai and let's say Bangkok, it's two different locations. The business is different, but how the productivity level is, how the manning is used, how much profit we generate per FTE, not per head count. That gives the real indication which business unit is performing better and at which period. So it's a very specific KPI, key performance indicator, used by almost all brands. So in productivity measurement, the one very famous, the first one is revenue per FTE. That's one of the first productivity measurement. We take a revenue of certain fixed period, calculate the FTE for that period, and then divide the revenue by the FTE. You can see in my chart, I have taken three business units, 1, 2, 3. The revenue of the first business unit is 48,594 with FTE 178. The business unit second is generating more revenue, 69,234, and FTE is 233, so more FTE. And the business unit 3, which is a smaller unit, has a revenue of 28,459 and the FTE is 97. FTE also less. Let's compare by using the productivity measurement. So what we do, we divide the revenue with the FTE. First we calculate the FTE. Once we have FTE, then we divide the revenue. And here, once I divide it, so business unit 1 shows a productivity of 273, which means each FTE is generating 273 thousands or units. Business unit 2 is generating 297, although their FTE is more, but their generation is 297. And business unit 3, which is the lowest revenue, 28,000, and lowest FTE, generating 293, so very high. So when we see this result, the management understand that the business unit 1 is overstaffed because generation is less, 273 compared to the other two. Business unit 3 operates at decent productivity level, that's 293, which is lower than the business unit 2, but still better than business unit 1. And the business unit 2, their biggest business setup operates at the highest productivity level, 297. So these data will show which unit is generating better, which is not generating better, indicate that the business unit 1, either it's overstaffed or revenue is not enough. So they start getting the indication. When they start doing for all business units or all the outlets or all the locations, they understand which unit or outlet is operating better in terms of revenue. Another popular method is calculating this with the profit. So again, we use the same formula, profit per FTE, and this can also be applied for the one-time events, and we start comparing two events of two different time, two different year. So it can be for a monthly exercise, can be for the business, it can be for the different location business unit, or it can be for the event, individual events. It's more popular than the revenue per FTE. But definitely first we generate the data of revenue per FTE to see how much each FTE is generating, and then profit per FTE, how much profit we are getting from each FTE. Here you can see I have taken 3 months, January, February, March. January with the revenue of 18,436, FTE is 112. February is 19,656, FTE is 118, increase in FTE with the revenue. And March, when the revenue is low, 12,854, FTE is only 79. FTE is moving, you can see. The headcount may be the same or maybe changing a little bit based on the use of the part-time and casuals, but full-time generally stay the same. But my FTE keep moving based on the business volume. January I have 112, February my business improved, my FTE increased to 118, and again in March when the business goes down, my FTE down to 79. So let's calculate the productivity level. In the January month, when I divide the profit 18,000 with the FTE 112, I get a productivity of 164, Same way in February I get a productivity of 166 and March 162. So if I see this, my productivity level is almost same. Even with the change in the profit volume each month, the profit per FTE remains almost same. It means they are managing the workforce according to the business volume. And the business unit manager understands the concept of FTE quite well, and it uses it perfectly, because my productivity or my profit per FTE is almost same, 164, 166, 162. Same way for the expenses, we can do payroll cost per FTE. Now payroll cost is, I'll say, a little complicated. In a way, when we do payroll cost per FTE, first we take out the service charge. Hotels and restaurants generally have this component service charge. Not every business unit, but if you have a service charge, because it moves along with your business volume. If your revenue is high, your service charge is high, so it inflates the payroll. So for this calculation, we take out the service charge and we calculate in two parts: on cost and benefit. So on cost is how much the basic salary, actual payment, that's on cost payroll. So we divide that with the FTE, we get one data. And second is the benefit, like accommodations, their meals, their provident funds, insurance coverage, whatever benefit the staff is getting, those benefits divided by FTE. So we calculate in two parts, on cost and the benefit. Why we do it? Because benefit change based on the locations. I'll explain you in example. So payroll cost per FTE. Here in this example, I have taken three locations: Bangkok, Maldives and Dubai. Let's say a company has three hotels, one in Bangkok, one in Maldives, one in Dubai, and obviously the payroll is different. But it's always a question in the management meetings, with the owners, with the investors, how the payroll is. Is it comparable, not comparable, or it is less? How do we know it? Everybody's paid at par. So again, we have to take the calculation two part. One is on cost, one is a payroll benefit. So on cost payroll for the Bangkok is 843, it's 1000. So I just reading the half numbers. It's 843, Maldives 934, and Dubai is 587. And FTE we calculate for the same period. For Bangkok 124, Maldives 134, and Dubai is 91. So when I calculate the productivity, that's on cost payroll divided by FTE, it comes to 6.8 for Bangkok, Maldives 6.9, and Dubai 6.4. So it's very comparable, 6.8, 6.9, 6.4. But again, now I compare the payroll benefits. In Bangkok, the payroll benefit is 169. Maldives is 846, very high, because in Maldives are the islands where the staff live in the island only. So the company has to take care of their accommodation, their meals, utility, laundry, everything. So payroll benefit, if you accumulate everything, it comes quite high, 846. And Dubai 432. It can be because of the location, or it can be because of the business practice. You have to provide accommodation to all and the meal, because mostly in Dubai we have expatriate, but in Bangkok we don't have expatriate. So you see there's a difference in the payroll benefit cost. And when we calculate the productivity, which is payroll benefit divided by FTE, the Bangkok is 1.4, Maldives is 6.3, and Dubai is 4.8. So this gives a different impression. The actual payment or actual payroll of the staff is almost comparable, but Maldives payroll look very high because of the benefit portion, which is 6.3 per FTE. So it cannot be compared with other cities because of the location, because of the business trend, competition around, how you get the staff. So there are many factors which can be analyzed. But again, this exercise will give a real indication to the management, to the investor, even to the employees, that yes, no one is paid very high, no one is paid very low, they are all paid at par, but the benefit changes because of the location. They are in the remote location, so benefit increase. You are not in remote location, benefit not increase. There are many expatriate, non-expatriate, so all those is a matter of discussion and analysis. So when we see this data, we are clear that everybody is paid at par, nobody is paid too low or too high, but the benefit change because some are in remote location, some are not in remote location. Some places we have more expatriate or the people coming from outside to work, or that's why the benefit portion or the accommodation, the meal and all increase, which is impacting the payroll. But overall payroll is in line. This also gives us a opportunity to standardize or to benchmark. With this data, you can forecast your future months, you forecast your budget, and you can also, if you share your data with other companies, you can share and see which company is paying more or less. This is a very common practice in the professionals. They generally compare their data. They generally exchange the data to understand how their business are flowing, but it's mostly offline. So this is the best way to benchmark the payroll. We can benchmark other things also, but payroll is very important. It's one of the major cost. Revenue per FT, then profit per FT, and then the payroll in two parts. So if we do these 3-4 things, we know quite a bit about how the business is working, how my manning is used, how I'm playing with the manning, which means how I'm using the casuals wherever need, and the part-time and how much full-time I'm keeping to manage the business as per the volumes. Now the question comes, how FT can be reduced? There are many ways of doing it. One is very popular one, we know it, we all discuss. Put a good mix of casuals and part-time along with your full-time. That's one. Second, change in the duty roster. Use the staff as per working hours, not as per days. If you need someone for 4 hours, put him on a break shift. Don't call him for full day. Try to call him for hours. So if your duty roster is based on the working hours, which is a little complicated, but certain locations work very well, especially the remote locations where the staff is provided the accommodation or they're living close by. Use the staff working hours when it is needed. Otherwise, give them holidays, give them off days. Third way is give them annual leave in time. When it's a low period, low business volume, give them annual leaves or give them extra days leave. And when the business increase, then time you use that extra days leave, which means they can work extra on busy period. But the moment the business goes down, they start taking leaves. And in some organization, they even go for minus leave. Minus leave is very famous. Like if somebody has a 10 annual days leave and he want to take 12 days, they give them 12 days. So they're -2. So those 2 days, he has to work in the high season in 2 of his off days. So that time we don't need extra people because these people will be working. Housekeepers use very, very effectively this one. Minus holidays. Minus holidays is a new concept, I'll say. We saw it last few years, 4-5 years back. Very effective. We generally see mostly in housekeeping and kitchen in the hotels. Back office also, but not that much. But mostly where the more workforce is there, the minus holiday concept work very well. There is no standard word for it, but it is used very effectively. And I've seen the housekeeper using it very effectively. Let your holiday goes minus and then you adjust it. Another method is avoid overtime payments. Again, if you do the minus holiday or if you manage their duty roster by hours or by break shift, you avoid people working extra hours. Extra hours means extra money or extra payroll. So extra hour also inflate your FTE. And final one, I will say, replace the working off days with the leaves. So if somebody is here and is working in off days because business is busy, or the accounting department is working on the off days or Sundays on the closing of the books, or sales is working for a certain business on their off days, Saturday, Sunday, compensate them with the leave. So the moment the low period comes, then start taking the holidays. So you can work on your off days, you accumulate some holidays, or the business volume is low. You can see my screen is the 5 days working hours of one staff. The manager, based on the working hours, change his working days. First day 10, second day 5, third day again 10, then 8. So totally he work only 41 hours in that week. Day 1 he work extra, day 2 he work, let's say half day, day 3 again little bit extra, day 4, 5 not 9 hours, slightly lower. So based on the peak of the business, his work hours is changed and he was paid accordingly. So here when we start changing the duty roster based on the work hours, of course cannot be 2 hours or 1 hour, but can be half day and the full day and little bit extra hours and some day going early. The manager and the supervisor has to manage it, and when they start managing, you can see instead of 45 hours you can do 41 hours, and this all impact your payroll. So it's very important to understand the FTE, how the working hours work, how your casuals work, how your part-time works, how you use the annual leaves of the staff or their working off days, how you compensate them, because everything is a money in a business. Every hour, whatever we do is a money impact. If we use it effectively, it really gives us a good return and improve the margins. That's all I have for today. So I hope you enjoyed my session on FTE. If you want to know more, you can have my book. It's in many university library and as a reference book in few hotel management institutes. I'm planning to have it translated in some other language to give a wider coverage. People can read it, understand it. If you have any question, you can let me know, and link is here below under the video. And have a nice day. See you soon.